To the Ad Podcast. We've got Andy Tretiak, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Airshare. You guys might saw that Airshare is the official jet and aviation partner of the PGA and the Ryder Cup this year. You saw their integration hopefully last weekend. Prior to Airshare, he founded the agency Brand Propulsion and was a marketing leader at Sporting Kansas City, FanThreeSixty, and Barkley in his early career. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Andy. Appreciate having you.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So always like to start with an origin story. Tell me a little bit about, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What'd you study, and what got you into the marketing and advertising industry?
So technically grew up in Omaha. I lived in Omaha till I was 13 and then moved to Kansas City in the mid 80s. And went to college at University of Missouri. Proud Tiger.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's going so far so good this year. But quickly got immersed into what life is like in Kansas City, and actually was originally a journalism major and switched to graphic design, which is an unorthodox way of getting into the business, and quickly realized that I loved being creative and I had a creative mindset, but it didn't translate into my abilities. So, I was a pretty average graphic designer, but I loved the idea of being involved in creative development and strategic thinking. So I actually got my start working at a smaller agency. And as I started to grow within that agency, started to have desire to go into a larger one. That's where I went to Barkley and spent several years there. And then really got the bug to get involved in sports. My goal was to apply my experience and my knowledge and my skill set into a subject matter that I really enjoyed, which was sports. So it turned out that there was a group of people at Barkley that spun off a sports marketing agency called 3Wide that I technically left Barkley to go work for, and spent several years there. Barkley then bought us and was brought back in. And that's how I got to be connected with the Kansas City Wizards folks, which was what Sporting Kansas City was known as at the time.
And you actually oversaw the rebrand, right?
I did, yeah. So I was involved in, there were multiple people that were starting to develop it. They didn't really have a marketing department at the time. During that period, they were really part of the Chiefs, and they were sharing resources, and they really didn't have their own dedicated group. And then a new ownership group came in and bought then the Wizards at the time, a group of 5 families. And, at the time, they really wanted to kind of flip the model, so to speak. And they had ideas around rebranding the team and building a new stadium, which was critically important. And felt like this was the time to really develop a new idea around what soccer was in Kansas City. And so, I honestly didn't have a lot of interest in soccer. I never played it. I played, more stick and ball sports, but the opportunity to rebrand a sports team doesn't come along very often, and help to build a stadium and craft what that experience is going to look like was really interesting and exciting for me. And so I started working with them while I was at Barkley, and then it was one of those classic of, one thing led to another. And they asked me to come on board full time, and I had technically left, and I spent 7 years plus at Sporting and had the time of my life. It was an incredible experience being able to do that, but then also seeing soccer grow and become part of kind of that fabric of Kansas City now, and a World Cup's coming to Kansas City in 2026, which is incredible. Never would have thought that. So feel like all of us that were involved back then and played a small role in all this happening. And then went off on my own for a little bit. At the time, this company was called Executive Airshare. The controlling owners of Sporting Kansas City, that were part of Sporting Kansas City, were controlling owners of Executive Airshare. They became a client of mine because they had some additional needs on the marketing side. And then our CFO at the time became the CEO, and he and I had a really good relationship. And, again, it was one of those kind of moments of fate where, he was looking to build out a new team. And after he, got his feet set, so to speak, he came to me and we had a discussion about it, and I decided to come on in 2018 full time, and now I've been here over 7 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I hear, more and more stories of, agency founders. You stand up a boutique and you start working with clients, and then, 3-4 years down the line, they just have to have you and the whole team. So it sounds like, that's kind of what happened for you guys, and that's a successful exit in my opinion as well. Let's get into what you've been doing with the PGA and the Ryder Cup. So did Airshare always have kind of a foot in sports marketing? Was that something that was always an important part of their strategy? Or is the PGA relationship something newer that you set up during your tenure?
Yes, on both fronts. So we had always had an involvement in sports. I would say more so when I came on board and we rebranded from Executive Airshare to Airshare. Primarily because we offered a complete suite of solutions that weren't completely represented by the Executive Airshare name, and we felt like that had become a little stale, and we wanted to refresh the brand. And so, we're looking for ways to grow our exposure as much as possible, and sports is a great forum to be able to do that, and helping elevate the brand, getting that applied endorsement. And golf had been a big part of that over the years. Even before I was here, we had a long standing relationship with Tom Watson while he was playing. Obviously there's a Kansas City connection there. And so that really kind of laid the groundwork for some other things that we had done over the course of the last 7-8 years, and led us to this point now. And that, we felt like as we're going national with all of our programs, which we ended up doing about 1.5 years ago, we wanted to associate with a property that would give us the ability to market ourselves with a property that had nationwide exposure. And we felt like the PGA of America was a great opportunity for us to do that. We had sponsored the PGA Championship a few years ago at Southern Hills in Tulsa. That was more a product of us being focused on the central US. And so there was a really good fit there. But I had conversations with their director of brand partnerships, John Hanley, back then, that, hey, we're going to be expanding in a few years. I know the Ryder Cup is coming in 2025 to New York. We have full plans to be in New York by that time. We should have a conversation as we get closer. So we reconnected, about 1.5 years ago, started having those conversations. And this is around the time that we got acquired by another family office that made a capital investment into Airshare and helped us expand our marketing reach and some other things that we wanted to do in terms of growing the business. And with that, we wanted to create more brand awareness nationwide. And so as we had those conversations, we thought, okay, well, maybe there's a bigger opportunity here between Airshare and the PGA beyond just the Ryder Cup, one-time event. So we started to have conversations about that and really crafted a very unique partnership where we're not only the official private aviation provider of the PGA of America, the PGA Championships for the next 4 years after this
Wow.
year, so a 5-year deal. And then the Ryder Cups this year, and then in 2029 on home soil. So in addition to that, as I mentioned, we were expanding nationwide, and we didn't have a lot of visibility on either coast. We had just expanded into Florida about 1 year prior to that. We were just going into New York. We hadn't had any exposure on the West Coast. So we wanted to have some additional partnership opportunities within the PGA of America structure that allowed us to have more of a local presence, in some markets. And so they have what they call sections throughout the U.S. where there are geographic clusters of clubs throughout the country, and there are 41 of them. And so we thought, well, let's test out activation not only at the macro level, where we have our tentpole partnerships with the PGA Championship and the Ryder Cup and the PGA America as a whole, but then also locally, we wanted to get involved with their sections in Southern California, the Southwest, Southern Florida, and then what they call the New York metropolitan areas, essentially Manhattan, and test that out and see how that would perform. So it gave us that micro exposure as well, so that we had the ability now to not only activate the partnership on a national level with these larger properties, but also locally year round in these communities, that allowed us to generate relationships with the partners down there, their executive leadership, the golf pros, the members at the clubs. And so that's providing a real benefit to our sales team they're focused on those markets as well.
That's awesome. I know PGA and Bank of America have a partnership for like youth sports and getting more kids swinging golf clubs younger. Are you guys able to tap into any of that kind of, the relationship that golfers have with their kids and kind of the next generation?
A little bit. This is really all about growing the sport of golf. We want to be a part of that. And so supporting your local clubs, certainly has the ability to reach families, beyond just, the guys that go play or the ladies that go play, in groups. So we wanted to be able to focus on that. And then also on the collegiate side too. So for the PGA championship on the collegiate side, we're a sponsor of that for their national championship. So that was important to us as well. So really kind of multifaceted, as you mentioned, from very young to, a seasoned golfer, we wanted to be associated with their ability to play every day and supporting their local clubs, in addition to the larger events that they love, and everybody loves the Ryder Cup and the PGA Championship as being one of the majors, and we wanted to be a part of that too. So gave us the best of both worlds.
I love it. Could you maybe just tell me a little bit how Airshare's business model works? There's a lot of companies in the category. Some own their own plane. Some are like an app that helps you, book last minute on people's remnant, inventory on their own personal private jets. Would you just tell me a little bit about the value proposition that Airshare is offering to the market, especially with this national expansion?
Sure. Yeah. So we offer a holistic suite of aviation solutions, which is fairly unique in our space. So we offer whole aircraft management, which means, you own an airplane, you need someone to take care of it for you. And that involves hangaring it and taking care of the crew, all the scheduling, maintaining, all the work that needs to be done on the plane on a day-to-day basis. And then in many cases, people that own airplanes want to charter it as well to generate revenue to offset their expenses. So, in totality, we have a fleet of over 100 aircraft, and a large portion of those are aircraft that we manage. And then we offer fractional ownership and jet cards within our fractional program. So that within fractional ownership gives you access to a certain number of days usage, and you actually own a portion of that plane. We sell our sections of those planes in increments of a 16th share. And then we also offer a jet card product that gives you 10 days access, does not involve ownership of that airplane. So the same benefits that you get from fractional ownership, but a little less usage, and not with the commitment of the ownership aspect of it. But there are benefits to both sides. And then we do charter both nationwide and internationally as well. So it's rare in our space for an operator like us to do all of those. Typically, it's pretty fragmented, where you have several companies that just specialize on aircraft management or offer fractional programs. We're unique in that we offer all of them. And that's, you mentioned the value proposition, that's at the core of it. So whether your needs are, someone to manage your airplane, or you just need some additional lift through a jet card or, a fractional share, we can handle all that for you. And we have several customers that use multiple products. You'd be surprised to see that you have customers who own their own airplanes but still buy a share from us or a card because, they're letting their business use some of the days, or, their family's using it and they just need it, to go from, one place to another on a regular basis. And they need that supplemental lift. So, that's a huge benefit, being a part of Airshare, because you're in the family. And then, I mentioned on the aircraft management side, for those that want to charter, we've got a built-in customer base that has an interest in chartering. So they get the peace of mind in knowing that, the customers that we're going to be putting on their airplane, they've been vetted and they've been part of our, our family for a long time. And so That's another, inherent benefit and unique attribute of Airshare in comparison to a lot of the other operators out there in our space.
Yeah, sounds like kind of as close as you can get to vertical integration within the private aviation space.
Yeah, we like to refer to it as cross-pollination because there are
Mm.
several customers where they started off with maybe a jet card, and next thing you know, their business blows up, or something significantly changes their flying needs, and now they want to buy their own airplane, and they stay with us because of the experience of being part of Airshare, but it's a different group that now is involved in managing that customer, because of the product that we're offering them, or the taking advantage of at the time. But there are a lot of customers that we have that really utilize multiple products, and that's something we're
Yeah, that's very cool. So let's get into your cup.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you guys decided to, it's one thing to commit to the partnership, but as we know, it's always in the activation is what really matters, right? It's like, it's one thing to put your logo, on the screen or on the wall, but, so much is, how do you show up for the fans? How do you drive that visibility on site? So tell me more about how you guys took advantage of Ryder Cup this year. What were some of your favorite moments? And what do you think the success is now, a couple of weeks into measuring, letting the hype wear off now that you're back in the office after all the
now I'm
lights and the
finally
cameras have
catching
turned
my
off.
breath. As a fan, certainly had hoped we'd had a little better showing, from the U.S. side, but
Sure.
obviously it's a great event. First time I'd ever attended, so the spectacle of it was incredible. From our standpoint, we really looked at it, from 12 months prior to the event. So once we started our activation around the Ryder Cup, really it was about how we connect the brand with the PGA of America, and then the Ryder Cup throughout the period of time leading up to it. So through all of our mass marketing that we were doing across the board, especially with a focus on those coastal markets on the East and the West Coast that we wanted to establish a greater presence in, we were promoting our association with the Ryder Cup, and that was really within all of the marketing that we were doing across the board, whether it be television, digital, and print. Events that we were doing locally at the section level, as well as we were activating, we were inserting our associate with the Ryder Cup into that conversation, as we were telling our story into people that maybe weren't as familiar with Airshare. And then as we led up to it, we did some really cool things on site. We actually had a physical display at Teterboro at our hangar that was a welcome to the Ryder Cup with Airshare and our partners there, and then also Republic Airport, which was an airport that's in Farmingdale. It's about 10 minutes away from the golf course. We had a large signage there that again had that welcome to the Ryder Cup, sponsored by Airshare, display there as well. And then really one of probably my favorite thing of all, we entertained 30 guests throughout the weekend.
Wow.
In hospitality, and they got what essentially we would call VVIP hospitality, in that the setup there was incredible, where they had this really cool clubhouse atmosphere there that people could come into, and it was right by the first tee in the 18th green. So the beginning of the Ryder Cup, when the first groups were teeing off on Friday morning, and everybody was loud, and there was so much patriotism and just build up for the event. It was very exciting to be a part of. But our guests got to be there, but then also essentially experience all of the different hospitality areas throughout the course. And so they really got to feel what it was like at every different viewpoint, throughout each day through each round. So that was a unique aspect. And then really probably my favorite part of it was we were really worried about getting people from Manhattan to Long Island. For people that live out there, that is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I played in a golf tournament. First time I've ever been to Long Island this year. I played at a golf tournament at the Creek, which is this kind of historic course up there. But man, it was a mission getting from like Midtown out to Brooklyn, then somebody picks you up and drives you out. Yeah, it's a mission for sure.
And it's, early in the morning when people are going to work, especially on Friday, and everybody wanting to be there for the beginning. We were concerned about that. So we had the idea to, instead of driving people really early from Manhattan out to Long Island, we actually drove them to Teterboro, and we stationed one of our Challenger 3500s at an FBO there. And so we essentially ferried our guests from Teterboro over the island and then over into Farmingdale. So what would have been a 2-hour drive, maybe longer in traffic, it was a nice 15-minute flight going over Manhattan, obviously picturesque view as you're flying over and getting a chance to experience what it's like, to fly with us, because most of the people that were attending were, potential prospects of ours. And we thought, what a great way to get people there efficiently, but also, in kind of an Airshare way, that only we could do. So we did that on the way there, and then after each round on the way back. And so that was probably my favorite part about it. I think that was what probably, beyond being at the Ryder Cup and experience that, our guests probably got a kick out of that more than anything.
Wow. How many guests were you able to kind of bring through that experience?
Yeah. So there were 10 each day. So the challengers can seat 10. And then we had Airshare folks that were seeing them off and then greeting them as soon as they arrived.
Wow.
And we hosted them, while we were there each day. And we had an event the night prior for each group as well. And did some special things there. So we wanted to, to really create a special experience for everyone that was attending as our guests. That's how we treat our customers every day when they fly with us. We wanted that to be represented in how they attended the Ryder Cup. And it also solved a lot of logistical problems from a travel standpoint as well. So
yeah, I love that. And when you talk about luxury marketing and marketing a product that's at this price point, I mean, really, you're talking about the, this is this is the highest touch marketing that you can do, I would imagine, when you're talking about these numbers. I love that. So did your partnership either globally with PGA or with Ryder, you mentioned you had a relationship with a player in the past. Did you activate with actual athletes on the field in any way, or is there an endorsement from the player level that kind of coincides with the organization? Anything kind of activating with like talent themselves?
No, a lot of our competitors do.
Got it.
Yeah, active in the space, and so part of it was strategically, how do we differentiate Airshare, in comparison to what our competitors are doing in the sport of golf? Certainly, people that like golf that tend to be more affluent, or that can attend those type of events, index very highly with our customer base. And so just knowing that we fly so many people every day on golf trips, we knew that it was going to be a great fit for us. So from our standpoint, we wanted to do something that we felt like would embrace everybody that loves the sport of golf. And that's where really the strategy, in my mind, was around properties, for a couple of reasons. Certainly, when you're essentially deciding on which golfers you're going to promote or you're going to have as an endorser, there is a risk involved in that. The performance ebbs and flows. Very few golfers, at that level, perform consistently well over the years. I mean,
it's like you mentioned, even in the showing, like you have no guarantees that your guy is going to get on camera or even make the cut.
Right. Exactly. And our competitors, a lot of them, they sponsor multiple golfers because they play the odds and they want to get that shot of the winning golfer, a major, taking the trophy home on the plane, and being able to leverage that, after a major or even any kind of event. And for us, we felt like, well, if we can align ourselves with the PGA of America, it gives us the benefit of association with these great properties that everybody loves, regardless of which golfer you follow, or who your favorite golfer is. You love the Ryder Cup, you love the PGA Championship, you're always paying attention. So we know that's a constant. And then having the ability to then bring that down to the local level was important as well. So it's not just about sponsoring professional golfers, it's also supporting your local golf pros and the clubs that you belong to. And so that was important to us to differentiate how we were going to get involved in the sport and do it differently. And we feel like that's been a huge benefit for us, because now, regardless of which golfer you may love, there's always going to be some that like that person and some that maybe like others. Everybody loves these events. So we can go and take that association in new markets for us, like New York or LA or South Florida. And we know that that's going to get the same reaction wherever we go in terms of aligning our brand with that property versus, well, maybe this golfer is not as popular in LA because, he's from Texas or he's from Florida and I support West Coast golfer. You never know what goes into fandom. And so we felt like from a property standpoint, it would prevent that from being, a polarizing partnership, but also give us an opportunity to leverage that nationwide.
Yeah. And it feels like by aligning with the league, but also with these key inflection points with the championship and Ryder, you're really banking on that experience and that hospitality moment, which you might not get, just throwing your logo on somebody's shirt. You don't get that same level of access when you become an official partner of the event itself. So it feels like you guys are definitely driving a stake in the ground. So let's talk a little bit about, your goals for this partnership overall and measurement. Are you looking at this as more of an awareness opportunity? Does it also translate to your lower funnel goals of driving new memberships, driving new fractional sales members, driving new fleet management clients? Like, is it brand and performance, or do you lean in one direction or the other on how you're going to measure?
Yeah, we see them working together, honestly. So the more that we, activate the partnership nationwide, establishes more brand awareness for Airshare across all the different solutions we offer. And then that translates down into the local level. So, our goal from an awareness standpoint is, as we go into these new markets and these new territories, the association with these properties help accelerate awareness of Airshare and who we are, what we do. But then it also gives us the opportunity on the local level for our sales VPs that cover those markets, whether it be whole aircraft management or our fractional programs, the ability to generate those relationships and start to get prospects from those, from that partnership, from the activation that we're doing locally, and the relationships that are building not only at the executive director level, but also all the way down to the members of those clubs. So we see them working hand in hand for sure.
That's cool. I also noticed you guys are celebrating an anniversary this September. 5th anniversary. Is that the 21st anniversary of rebranding as Airshare, essentially?
Well, no, it's the 25th anniversary of the company. So we started in 2000. We rebranded about a little over 7 years ago. But yeah, the company was founded in 2000, started out in Wichita, then moved to Kansas City shortly thereafter. Then expanded, both from a solution standpoint, what we were offering to customers in addition to geographically expanding. And there's a lot of growth has occurred specifically really within the last, 8+ years. And, the 25th anniversary really is special for us because it really represents how far we've come. There were times, I think, before, this group was in place that you didn't really know where if the company could get to where we are today. And the growth we've experienced now, like I said, over, the last 7-8 years, has been incredible. And, we've had the opportunity to expand all of our services nationwide, and our company has doubled in terms of the number of employees in the last year and a half.
Wow. So you guys are on a hockey stick trajectory.
Yeah. So, that's something we're celebrating for sure. And, but also in our space, longevity and stability means something. You see a lot of operators that come and go. There are a lot of people and entities that want to get into private aviation because it's interesting, and they see the benefits of what it's like when it's successful. But it's it can be risky, and there are a lot of horror stories out there. People that have invested money in buying, products from companies that go under, and we call them fly by night, operators, which, it is maybe not the best pun, but, it kind of rings true. And,
Sure.
for us, being in business for 25 years and having really strong financial backing and having, somebody come in and put more money into it, in the last year versus, other competitors who are, maybe struggling or have gone, out of business. Yeah, that's a very meaningful story that we wanted to share. And the 25th anniversary really is representative of that.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like in luxury or ultra high net worth, you kind of have to have that heritage that you can be a trustable, dependable brand, and not, something like you said, especially when you're dealing with like, ownership management of your plane or fractional ownership. It's one thing to like go on an app and book a seat for one leg of a trip or something like that. But when you're looking at these more long-term relationships with customers who, travel private most of the time versus, occasionally, it feels like that heritage is really something worth celebrating. And it seems like you guys are doing that in a big way with the PGA and these flagship events. Any other major inflection points for the 25th anniversary or partnerships that you want to plug or talk about?
Well, I would just say, it really represents the trust that our customers have in us. They every day they trust us to get their guests or themselves from point A to point B safely when we fly them. But then, in addition to that, they're making a significant investment in whichever product or solution that we offer. And we want to make sure that, they have that comfort and peace of mind, and knowing that we're here for the long term and we're always going to be here to take care of them. And in addition to that, the flexibility that we offer them, and being able to, call us on a whim when they do need a flight in a last minute situation, or, when the plane and the crew stay with them within our fractional program, when things change throughout the day or the schedules change, knowing that we're always there, the plane's always there with them, is something that we take a lot of pride in from a customer service standpoint. And that's something that really sets us apart.
Love it. All right, Andy, if people who are listening want to reach out, learn more about Airshare, but also connect with you directly to maybe talk partnership opportunities or things like that, where would you like to point the audience to learn more?
Sure. FlyAirshare.com is our website. We'd love to have you come and visit our site and learn a little bit more about our programs. If you have any interest in talking directly to me, please feel free to reach out and email me at Tretiak@FlyAirshare.com. So that's ATRETIAK@FlyAirshare.com.
All right. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate your time today, Andy. For those of you who are watching, this is the very first time you're tuning into the Ad Podcast. Don't forget to give us a like or a follow wherever you're watching. If you're listening, an honest review is how the show finds a larger audience organically. And most importantly, if there's a golf fan out there in your life, somebody who wants to learn more about traveling private and the multitude of different service offerings that Airshare gives their customers, or if there's a marketer out there who you think would learn a little bit more about my conversation with Andy today in regards to how to do sports marketing right, would appreciate if you shared the show. And with that, Andy, I will bid you a farewell, and thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.